Hey everybody, Derek here to bring another video for Fear the Walking Dead Season 2. And what this video is going to be doing is giving my review for the second episode of Fear the Walking Dead called We All Fall Down. If you are not caught up with Fear the Walking Dead and you do not want to be spoiled in any way, then I would exit the video now and come back later, because otherwise you will be spoiled. Okay. So, my overall thoughts, I thought it was a lot better than the first episode. I think it was really a great improvement for the second season, for them to be going into different areas, to go back onto shore, to meet up with new characters, and to actually have a storyline that really throws the group into just the, sheer awfulness of the entire apocalypse as it is, I think was a very good thing for the entire show. And I think that if they continue the pace of the episodes like this, I think that the show will only get better from here. I think it was amazing. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great story. So I definitely thought that as it went on, it got better and better rather than worse or stayed the same. So very good written episode. So what ends up happening, the main points of the episode, are the group is getting away from that boat. Strand finds that the boat is following them. So they decide to go to Catalina Island, I believe it was, in order to escape. Going onto shore would allow them to get away from the boat that is chasing after them, and was probably the same boat that cut down that yacht that we saw in the first episode, that boat that had sank. And, the group looks through the log and finds out that the boat came out of San Diego, which is where they were planning on going. And this really makes the group concerned. Do they have a place that they can go? And they end up going onto the shore, and they come upon this house. And there's lights signaling from the house, and they realize that somebody is there. So they end up coming into contact with 5 individuals. It's a family that has been living on this shore and have actually been guarding themselves against the walkers. At the very beginning of the episode, we saw 2 children playing on the beach, and there was a fence, and we saw walkers that were washing up onto the shore and actually coming up to the fence and hanging on to it. So we did know that there were people there. And it turns out that there are 5 members in this family. The patriarch of the family, his name is George. The matriarch is a woman named Melissa. And then they have 3 children. They have Seth, Willa, and Harry. And the group, comes onto shore. They want to find out what they can about the apocalypse, just how widespread it is. And the group gets hit with the realization that it is actually pretty widespread. George seems to be able to communicate with other places, and he found out that San Diego's gone, a lot of places in Utah, Arizona, Colorado, pretty much a lot of the West Coast has no longer been responding. So it's very clear that this is not just a very local event. This is, worldwide probably. And the group finally actually gets this realization and really wants to find a safe place to go. I think that they're very concerned about whether the water is a safe place or whether they can stay on land. And that's definitely a big concern for Travis, Madison, and the rest of the group, is there really a safe place to go? And they end up staying with the family for a while, and we get to know them a little bit. And right away, you can tell that something is off. You don't exactly know, but just the mannerisms of people and the way that certain people were talking, you just knew that something wasn't right. And we come to find out a little bit about George, and George is really about family in a different way than maybe some other people are. And one of the things that he actually admires about Travis, I think that they said that Travis's character was, I think, Maori, which is, I think, a group out of New Zealand. and it's a tribe of people. And they actually took, when Travis's mother died, they took her back to her homeland so she could be buried there. And George emphasizes a lot on that. He goes, I admire that. I think that to see family being able to come into the world in one place and leave it or rest there in the same place together is important, which we see a lot. When people they pass on and they get buried, many times they're buried next to their loved ones, or whatever the case may be. But George seems to emphasize a lot on that. And George also, sees the apocalypse in a sense for what it is. And him and Travis can kind of identify in that way, because way back in the series premiere, we had Travis talking about nature versus man, and this idea of nature always winning. Well, that came up again in the conversations that they were having, that this is nature's way of hitting back. It's course correction, if you will, that the world was getting to a point where the earth itself couldn't take it and took action. Many people see that maybe with, viruses, with plant life, with many other things. You see epidemics, you see different things, and many people look at that as the earth itself course correcting, trying to get back to a better way, if you will. And we see a lot of that conversation going on, but also this emphasis on the family aspect, which of course is important for the Walking Dead world. And what ends up happening, though, is the group finds out something very shocking about the family, and they find out that Melissa is dying. I think she had a cancer mass, I think that's what she said she had, but that she had a terminal illness, and eventually she was going to die. And the idea was that the family would not separate, that they would die together, if you will. And you heard throughout the episode, the children were mentioning something about power pills or something like that, and hearing this reference about pills. And Nick was going around snooping around things, and he actually finds the pills inside this globe toy that can come apart in half. And of course, we know that Nick knows quite a bit about drugs, and he makes this shocking revelation to Travis and Madison. And what we basically find out from everything is that perhaps at a time in the near future, I don't know when exactly this was going to happen, but that the family was going to die together, that they were going to take pills that would, make them pass away and, of course, come back as walkers. And that had been their plan. And at that point, the mother, Melissa, didn't really want to go through with this. She did not agree with this plan and asked Travis and Madison if she would take the two younger children away, because their oldest boy was so much like his father. And the boy was about a teenager. He was probably 16, 17, maybe even in his late teens, early 20s. So it was pretty much a situation where she wanted the younger children to at least have a chance. And sadly, what ends up happening is the young girl, Willa, accidentally takes the pills early and unfortunately dies. And she ends up coming back as a walker, and she bites her mother, Melissa, and she, of course, dies from her wound. And at that point, Travis and Madison make the decision, we're going to take the kids. They were going to take the kids anyway, because they didn't want to, leave anybody else behind to die. I think that Madison is still feeling some guilt over not doing more to save those people that were in the boats in the first episode, and she doesn't want to let anybody else die, so she agrees to take the children. Well, at this point, they take Harry and go, and George stays behind to what I presume to be to join his family. He's probably going to let Melissa bite him. And they get Harry out onto the boat. And, of course, Strand's all ticked off. Like, what are you doing? Why are you bringing somebody else on my boat? And Madison basically talks him down and says, no, this is what we're doing. Screw you, Strand. We're doing this. And while this is going on, in the trailer, we had seen somebody come onto the boat Well, now that you see the episode, we know that this is the oldest child, who, again, I believe his name was Seth. But it was the oldest son of George and Melissa, and he basically gets onto the boat, points a rifle at everybody, and says, "Hey, you give me my brother back." And there's some hesitation. People don't know whether they should shoot the boy, invite him along, whatever. But Seth is basically committed to his father's legacy to keep the family together and on the place that they lived. That was his philosophy, and it really brushed off on him. And the family does agree to let Harry go back with his brother. They go back onto the shore. The group leaves, and we see the mother as a walker walking down the pier, and basically the brother ends up shooting the mother and kills her as a walker. So what's going to happen with those two, I'm not sure. I don't know if they intend to join their family by taking the pills, or if they're just going to survive together. But one way or the other, it's pretty much guaranteed that they're staying there. So definitely a very shocking experience. Definitely very sad, to see a child die and turn into a walker. Definitely something that was a lot darker than what you would expect on the show, but definitely something that went to the shocking nature of the show. And again, I thought it was a very good story, and I think it really made the characters more aware of what the world was like, and it was nice to see how they responded, and maybe see if maybe they would respond like that in the future or not. It's hard to say. Two other main things from the episode that I think are important to mention. One is the Chris and Travis relationship. The two of them still are not really getting along. We saw Travis try to talk to Chris at one point in the episode as they were going on the shore, and Chris didn't really seem to want to listen to what his father said. Travis said, "Hey, maybe we can find someplace safe," and Chris saying, "Hey, you don't know that. Come on, like, you don't know exactly what you're saying, Dad." Really not having faith in his father's words. And then later, there were walkers coming up against the fence, and the oldest boy and Chris went down there and were killing walkers with these axes and killing them. And Travis was very, sad, in a sense, to see his son having to resort to killing walkers. It is a hard thing. I can understand where he's coming from, where you hope and expect certain things for your family, and I don't think that they ever wanted a zombie apocalypse, obviously, but to see his child, killing things and becoming, more angry in a sense, I think that it does worry Travis. And especially we've seen, the last two episodes, Chris has definitely been having a hard time dealing with his mother's death, having a hard time adjusting with his father. So I think in a sense, some of that was anger, by taking it out on the walkers, but also him starting to grow up and realizing his role and what the world is like. So I thought that was a pretty interesting note. And then the other thing had to do with Daniel, Salazar, Ophelia, and Strand, because they stayed on the yacht. And at one point, Ophelia and Daniel were having a conversation, and it turns out that Ophelia, actually understands more about her father and why he is the way he is. So this was a relationship that's actually maybe mending itself a little bit. If you remember in the first season, there was some tension there when Ophelia brought Adams back to the house and Daniel tortured him without telling her. I was wondering, was that relationship going to get mended, or, was it going to get worse? And it turns out that just based on what's been going on and the way that the world is, it actually makes Ophelia understand more about why her father did the things that he did. So you saw a little bit of a change in their relationship, maybe for the better. And when it came to Salazar and Strand, we saw the two of them really disagreeing, about their philosophies. You saw, Strand and Salazar really not trusting each other. Strand trying to get the group to still trust him, but people are skeptical of him, especially after he, made the decision to not want Harry on the boat. But again, in a survival aspect, I mean, in a survival sense, I understand Strand's point of view. Morally, I think it's definitely a hard call to make, but, it's definitely depending on what decision you're making and what theory you use. I can and cannot, in a sense, understand why Strand made that decision. But the other thing that's very interesting that the show will probably build on is that Strand was talking to somebody on a phone. I think it was one of those satellite phones, but he was having a conversation with somebody. Daniel Salazar had been snooping around in the one area of the boat and found this machine gun, and he also found maps. And one of the things that he indicated was that some of the maps were about Mexico. And we saw that Strand was talking to somebody and planning on meeting up with them very soon. So who these people are, I'm not sure. They might be friends of his. They might be enemies. He may have some kind of plan that I wasn't aware of, and we may find out some things about him. But again, I thought it was a very good episode, very good balancing of all the elements. And I really hope that everything can continue. And next episode looks pretty interesting as well. It looks like they are going to come upon the plane crash finally. So that'll be nice to see how all of those elements come together as well. So with that, I'm going to bring this video to a close. I want to thank all of you for watching. If you have any questions or comments, don't be afraid to leave them. Feel free to subscribe. I do have more videos coming. And if you have any suggestions for future videos that you would like to see, don't be afraid to suggest them. Have a very wonderful evening, and thank you very much for watching.